Hi, I'm Jerry Winkley, and Easter's approaching very quick. I hope you'll join me in a challenge in the weeks as we approach up to Easter to take a look at historical accounts to discern for ourselves, is Jesus Christ indeed a fraud, or is he the Son of God, as he claimed to be? It all hinges on one thing, and that thing is, did he rise from the dead? To answer that, we're going to look at historical accounts of eyewitnesses to determine for ourselves what we believe. As we do that, in the next few weeks we're going to be doing a brief video, and I'm going to be talking about stories of eyewitnesses, people who were there, people who saw, and whose stories are historically documented and tested over 2,000 years of time. It'll be interesting to see where those stories come from. I title them the following: There are three agnostics who tell their story. There's one who was a blundering failure. And lastly, and very interestingly, the testimony of a tormented woman. Join me each week as we take a look at those. But before we do, and before you begin that journey, let's clarify a few things. Churches throw around the term gospel, or we talk about the gospel at Easter. What does that mean? Gospel simply means good news. It comes many times from a verse called John 3:16 that you'll come across in my challenge. It says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." If that is true, and if the claim that Jesus rose from the dead is true, that is indeed good news. If it is not, it is a fraud. We'll be researching and having fun together, and I hope you'll join me in this challenge. Here's the challenge. Find a Bible in a readable translation. English has changed a lot over the years, so find a translation that reads in the way that we use English today. And look in the index for a book called The Gospel of John. In the index there are several books that have the word John in the title. You're looking for the Gospel of John, the good news of John. And then I hope you'll read that with the goal of finishing before Easter in April. Read at your pace and join me each week. So in closing today, I want to tell you the story of someone who was a non-theist, an agnostic, and a friend of his who was an atheist. The man we'll be looking at is a man whose name was General Lew Wallace, a general in the Union Army in the Civil War. After the war, he was riding with a friend of his, Colonel Ingersoll Rand, and they were riding on a train together through Indiana. As they were traveling, they noticed the communities dotted with churches all over as they looked out the windows of the train. Colonel Rand commented, "What a shame of all these people who are deceived and all these churches who are misleading people. I wish somehow we could set them straight." Ingersoll Rand went on to become a lecturer as an atheist, debunking, in his mind at least, the story of the gospel. He challenged Lew Wallace. He said, "Lew, I want you to use your legal skills," because Wallace was an attorney. "Use your research and legal skills and research and debunk the biblical story." Wallace accepted that challenge and spent the next 4 years researching the claims of the Bible. In fact, made trips to Israel researching the historical accuracy, the archaeological evidence, putting things together so that he could disprove the Bible. At the end of that, remembering that Wallace is an agnostic, perhaps an atheist, he came to his findings, and he put together 4 years worth of research into a story. Once he found the evidence, he found it was very convincing and overwhelming, and he had to communicate that. The challenge was, he had to be intellectually honest. He had to follow the truth that he had found where it led him, and it didn't lead him where he thought it would. In fact, Wallace found that he believed. He found that the biblical story was accurate and trustworthy and verifiable. And he, instead of debunking the scripture, embraced the Scripture, and received Christ and his offer of salvation. How did he then tell the story? He made the story of a journey of faith of a young man named Judah Ben-Hur. Now, Hollywood's done a lot to the story of Ben-Hur, but the book that he wrote was the story of Ben-Hur, describing a move towards faith. Next week, join me, I hope. Watch for my next video. We'll be talking about our first agnostic, number 1, and their eyewitness testimony. But, there's only one reason to believe the gospel, to believe that good news, and that's because it's true. And it hinges, as you remember, on one thing: the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Is it a historical reality? Is it not? Remove the lens that you look through life at, whatever worldview you ascribe to, whatever life has brought together in all of your learning and study and life experiences. Try to look with an open mind, an unbiased mind. That's hard to do. We all bring our biases. So try to lay them aside. Take the challenge and begin to look at the Gospel of John and say, God, if there is a God, please guide me into the truth. I look forward to seeing you. Have a good week.